You cannot have it all. You cannot have a full-time job and be a business owner. You cannot successfully run three and build three businesses. You cannot. You are full of grand ideas, but you have to pick the one or two that you can successfully
Mhm.
execute and
Yeah,
commit to it for the next 2 to 3 years and do the boring work behind it and do all the stuff that nobody wants to do because it's your idea. And if
right.
you can't commit to it, why in the hell should anyone work for you and commit to it?
Welcome to the Pivoting Wolf. Open conversations with interesting people from varying backgrounds across several different countries around the world.
Hello, everyone. This is Rhonda Harris, and this is another episode of The Pivoting Wolf. And today I'm going to be speaking with Shelia Matthews about a recent big pivot that she is going through. So let's just go ahead and jump right in. Shelia, do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Sure. It's so great to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Rhonda. My name is Shelia Matthews, and I am the founder of Culture Pro, which essentially is a business that helps small business owners build culture, get hiring right, and have a plan to operationalize how they treat their employees from day one. Most business owners don't usually bring in a full-time HR person until later in their growth trajectory, but it helps the business if they have a good people strategy sooner than that. And that's really the need that my business fills is I can provide fractional people and culture services and help them figure out what their organizational chart should look like, how should the business be structured, and then really to teach people how to get really talented people in their business in order to help them grow it. And then once you do that, you have to figure out how to keep them around. And guess what? I also help with that too.
That's awesome. So here's the big question. What makes you a pivoting wolf? How did this all come about? Because I know this is a big change. Your company's new, and I am so excited for you that you are doing this. It's just, I'm passionate about anybody who is out there doing their thing, trying to start their own business. And tell me a little bit about how you came to this point where you started your new business.
Yeah. So I was working at a startup company, and the name of that startup was acquisition.com. And when I first started working there, they were completely remote. And over time, of course, you never really know what direction a business is going to grow in. Sometimes when it's moving very fast, and this one absolutely is a fast growing business. And we ended up getting a headquarters and a physical presence and a big space. And over time, my bosses wanted me to move to Las Vegas and be able to come into the headquarters and work in person. And don't get me wrong, I love the team. It's a great company. But I live in Georgia in the Atlanta area, and I have young kids, and I'm just in a different season. And so, sometimes if you can make the move, and a lot of people, if their earlier career, are happy to do that. But I have a lot of roots and community here in my neighborhood. And so we amicably parted ways. It wasn't, it was sad, but it wasn't the end of the world or anything. And it kind of, from there, I thought, well, I was working for very successful entrepreneurs, without a doubt. And I just spent 2 years not only working with them, but we helped entrepreneurs and small business owners. And I had talked to hundreds of entrepreneurs during this time. And I thought, I mean, maybe there's a world where I don't become an employee again. Like why can't I start my own business? I The thing that I learned really was across all the people that I spoke with who owned businesses, they really didn't have a ton of stuff in common. Some people had been the employee before, some hadn't. Some people had deep industry experience in the business they started, some had none. But the one thing that they all shared
Mhm.
was their tenacity. They were all people who don't give up easily. And they get up the next day, even if the day before really sucked, and they just keep going. And I told my own, never forget this conversation that I had with my husband. I was like, I've been doing that too, but for other companies. I think I can do that. I don't give up easily. I'm very driven for results. And if that's really the one thing that every person that I've spoken to has, and I see that in myself, I think it would be weird and wasteful to not try it and not use the 2 years of information, that I had just finished accumulating. And so people always think that in working at acquisition, like my biggest lessons would be around marketing and sales, and I learned a lot about that stuff. But the biggest lesson I got was absolutely letting go of the limiting belief that, I had gotten too far in my career to own my own business, or that maybe, like I still didn't have enough qualifications to start working for myself. And, that lesson is like, I don't know that I could put a value on that. But that really was the biggest thing that I got from working there. And that's what allowed me to pivot and just say, okay, I'm going to go for it. And Rhonda, worst case scenario, I can go get another job if it doesn't work out.
That is so remarkable because I couldn't agree with you more. I honestly think that sense of not giving up and that little je ne sais quoi, it's like the special sauce that is in every entrepreneur. It's the why not me? Like it's the little spark of, the difference between the person who just says, nah, I'm just going to go ahead and get another job, even though in their heart, they might want to start a business. They might want to do a lot of things, but you really said the magic phrase, limiting beliefs. That is absolutely at the core of every instance of imposter syndrome that I have ever come across. And I, as you can imagine, in coaching, I encounter that a lot. Regardless of what the situation has to do with starting a business, or it's like anything else that, that someone desires to do, there's always this imposter syndrome. And it's amazing to me how, despite the certifications, the life experience, the qualifications, the capabilities, the personality traits, all of these, clearly obvious evidence of someone's ability to actually be able to do well with their business. There's that little voice in your head, that limiting belief that tells you, oh, well, no, that's for other people. That's not for me. And speaking of that, I hear the energy in the way that you described it, but did you ever have any moments where you were kind of teetering on, whether or not you would, go ahead and go with that? Or was it just floodgates, full steam ahead, to never give it a second thought?
Every other day, maybe. I was really surprised by it, actually, because it was almost like this rapid cycling where it's like for 3 days, it's like nothing can stop me. This is working. It's going well. And it was really surprising to see just how quickly I could completely derail into, what have I done? Okay. How much money have I wasted trying to stand these things up so far? Okay. Maybe this wasn't the right thing. I should, okay. Oh, let me think about this. I don't know. Maybe I should just start putting some applications in just as a safeguard. And then as quickly as those thoughts kind of crept in, then all of a sudden, like something, and it's not even that it's something major, like, oh, I landed a $500,000 deal. It's not like that. It's like, I get a referral from someone.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't even ask, I haven't even stood up a referral program yet. I'm not even asking, but like that little thing, like, oh my gosh, he thought of me and he trusted me to help this other person that he knows really well, that he considers a good friend. And now I'm going to work with that person and help them with their business. It's working. Okay. Maybe I rushed to judgment. Maybe I was jumping to conclusions, and it's kind of been like this for me. You know what I mean? Like this up and down roller coaster where it's like some weeks I really do like, I'm like, this is a good week. Thank goodness. This podcast got timed with an up week. that a lot of really good, promising things have happened. But then there's definitely times where I get really scared and, nervous. And I think what helps me during that time is I built a plan and a backup plan, and not like a super like 50-page business plan or anything, but it's just like, this is what I'm going to try and do in this timeline. Like, if I can accomplish these 3 things, I will take those as yeses that I'm on a good path, and I will evaluate where I am with it at this point. And any given time, I can always enact plan B, which is start applying, start repositioning my brand and my name online. And thankfully, though, I haven't had to do that yet. But it feels good kind of knowing that I do know what to do if I start to sense that this isn't quite working the way that I thought it would.
So that's a very logical approach. And so it sounds like that gives you some comfort and some reassurance. Like you said, it's your plan B. But as we know, not everyone operates that way, right? Because the other side of that coin is, there would be someone that could come to say, well, you know what, Sheila, the energy that you spend thinking about your plan B, you could pour it into your plan A, so there's a difference of opinion about that approach. There's the burn the boats approach, like all in, like we're not going to fail, I'm going to sleep in my car until I mean, there's been those Cinderella stories, and I'm not saying that to debate you, but the reason I bring that up is because I wanted to ask you, if you didn't have that in place, because it's having the ability to have that in place, because I'm thinking here to myself, well, in order to even be able to have that in place, you've got to have some structure. You've got to have some systems, some foundation. You've got to at least be able to have enough of a head start to be able to say, well, I'll give it a try. And then if that doesn't work, then I can start applying for jobs. Some people may not be able to do that so easily in terms of just being able to apply for another job and have that gap, in employment. So what would you say to those people who have that? Yes, they're on the roller coaster ride that you described. But maybe they're not either in a position, or they haven't come to the conclusion or have the mindset yet to take the logical approach that you described. How would you advise someone who's maybe on a little bit of a different path in terms of how to tame that little voice that's like, what am I doing? Like, kind of find some balance between the, yes, we can't fail, and the, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Like, there has to be a happy place. What would you advise someone like that?
No, I think that's a great call out, because everybody's different. And so some people, I have 2 kind of tactical things that I would recommend, and they're very different. So another way to look at it is, what's my financial runway? Because you can believe that behind my plan B, there's I've got kids, I have a husband, we have a home, we got, you know what I mean? Like, we're no different from anybody else out in the world when it comes to having responsibility and having people we owe money to on a month-to-month recurring basis, right? And so part of that plan is also just like, what's my financial runway, and how long do I have to put this full throttle? But another thing that I think is super helpful in kind of combating that little voice inside of our heads that works against us sometimes, when I first left my company, when I left my last job, the first thing I did was figure out, okay, I need a little band of people around me. Who in my network has a business, started a business, who's done this? I was not looking for like people doing 100 million a year. I wanted to find people who had maybe they're a year ahead of me. You see what I mean? Like, they're not so far ahead of me that they have forgotten where I am and what my struggles are, but they're far enough ahead of me that they got through them.
So a bit of benchmarking type activity.
Benchmarking, but they became my support system.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I didn't need a lot of people, but I had 2 or 3 people that I had if I didn't do this intentionally at the time, but like if I were to assign kind of personas to the people that I rely on now, I
Mm-hmm.
have one super pragmatic person who they're 100% cheering for me, but they are very realistic. And
Right.
so they're just like, I love what you're doing. I want you to succeed. Did you hear how this sounded though? Like you might want to not explain it that way because that's going to come across wrong to some people. I was like, oh, great catch. And then I had another person who's, like I said, a business owner and whose business is a little bit up the road from mine and successful, like they're out of the hard weed part of starting and now they're refining and building. And
Mm-hmm.
I've got that person that I reach out to. And then because of some of the like I'm doing things that are very technically out of my comfort zone. So one thing I'm spending more time on social media in an intentional way. I
Mm-hmm.
never done that. Rhonda, I watch cat and dog videos on social
I
media.
know. I've noted. Listen, can I just pause for a moment and just give props to your LinkedIn game is really strong. I'm like, wow. I thought I was onto something, but this chick is blowing me out. Well, of course, I haven't been. I hate to admit it. I have been very neglectful on my LinkedIn um, game, but I've been too busy, which is a good problem to have, but still, that's not an excuse for abandoning
No,
all of those things.
let me tell you, it seems everyone's like, oh, just post every day. It sounds so easy. No, it is so difficult to post every single day, something meaningful. So I thank you for noticing. I'm trying so hard out there.
Oh, I really super notice you are in my feed a lot, and I have a little secret to tell you. There's a few bangers that you posted out there, and I like email them to myself, and I put a little note in the subject, do this. Like, do what she did here. Like, that's a killer video that she did. You need to do one for yourself. Like, like you have some really great posts. And I'm like, reminder. And
So
I forgot.
that is a third person in my circle, Rhonda, is I needed someone who understood social media and content. Cause again, like I only knew it through the lens that I had. And I
Yeah.
knew that if I wanted to try and use LinkedIn to meaningfully get the word out and have people see my face and think of Culture Pro and think of my business, I knew that I had to do something a little bit differently. And so I am that's my third person that I reach out to are people who know social media and can give me advice from time to time
Mhm.
and teach me how to think about it differently. And so everybody's circle will look a little different, for them. But those are sort of like the personas or the kind of high level descriptions of the people that I use that really do help me battle my internal voice because they're showing up to those conversations when I have self doubt and when I'm just like, guys, I don't know if this is working. I don't know. Like I've tried it, I've done it, this and that. And they can say realistically, Sheila, when I started doing the same thing you're doing right now, it took X number of months before it took root. And
Right.
so sometimes we need to hear those things because it just every day can seem like an eternity for us when we take an action and it doesn't generate immediate results. We immediately go, I did it wrong. Oh,
Right,
we
because we're
don't
not getting
do
that immediate gratification.
that's
We're not at work where we're having like a team meeting and we're getting like, reward and recognition. We're not getting an attaboy from the team lead or
you
yeah.
don't.
I mean, we have to be our own team lead.
That's
We have
right.
to be our own project manager. We have to be our own um, employee assistance program.
Preach. That's so true.
We have to be our own like team coach. I mean, we have to be our own everything. I wanted to just take a moment and just kind of reflect back on the bits of advice that you just gave, because one of the things is really sticking out. Um, it's the first thing I wanted to mention because it's the first thing you did mention, but I'm going to save that one for last. I'm going to recap what you just said. So I think it's really important to, like you said, do some benchmarking. And I with the people that I've been coaching in terms of, trying to start their own business, the benchmarking is so important because I think it's hard to see yourself in that new role. And part of what I try to work with people on is to like help them to be comfortable to almost kind of let go of their employee type identity so that they can latch on to the entrepreneurial identity, because it's two completely different things. So I believe that benchmarking, and if you can align yourself and surround yourself with people who are already doing successful things, they don't have to have the same type of business that you have. I mean, you could be a dentist and that person could be, I don't know, whatever, a tech guy, whatever. The foundational components to what I'm trying to get at are the same. And that is that you have to, and I'm going to throw out I'm going to tap into our ISD language here. Think with the end in mind.
Yes.
The HPT model, what is the end state? And you have to so focus on that so with such intent that I think that sometimes people forget that that's not just a one and done kind of thing. To maintain presence and stay in that mindset of staying super intently focused on the end result requires daily practice, and you have to be very intentional about it. Benchmarking can help you because you will surround yourself with the people like you just described your team. And one of the other things that you said, the support system, I cannot stress that enough. I agree with that so hard, because I wanted to ask you, even before you started your business, wouldn't you say that if you're like in a career, it can be lonely, whether you're self-employed. It can be particularly lonely if you're self-employed. Some people are not ready for that, but you can be lonely in your career too, in a company as well. No matter what path you're on, I think that it's really very important that you mentioned a support system. We all need a support system. But if you're going to wake up in the morning and combat that little voice in your head that's trying to tell you not to start your business, better have a support system in place, or else you will be sitting on the sidelines forever, wishing your life away and not doing what you have to do. Now, the third piece, you mentioned the financial runway. I cannot tell you how many people don't start because of that. And I have something really I want to say about that after I finish. I'm going to get on my soapbox in a moment. But the financial runway piece is really a big prohibitor of people starting their own businesses. Because like you said, we've got mortgages, we've got kids, we have this responsibility, and you feel like, well, I owe it to my family not to put ourselves in jeopardy, and people will say you're nuts for going out and doing this thing. People will look at you sideways and funny, and then this is the golden message that I want to say. This is the difference between having I want to be careful how I say this, because I want to just say one thing for sure. There's nothing wrong with being an employee. There's absolutely nothing wrong with working somewhere and having a career. That's not what this is about. But for those who are struggling, who really have something to share with the world, and they really have skills and they have value to bring to the world, and they want to start a business, and I think they should start a business, this message is for them. So the difference is adopting the entrepreneurial mindset, and that financial runway. If that's what it takes to make you sleep better at night, or if you feel like, you got to have so many eggs in a basket before you can jump out there and get started, by all means, do what you got to do. Now, here's my little rub that I have to say. have you seen how many people have been getting laid off lately? Ladies and gentlemen out there, whoever's watching this video, whenever you're watching it, at whatever day, month, year it is that you might happen upon this video.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you, I speak from experience, and I also have from my own experience and also from watching others struggle through layoffs,
Mm-hmm.
and nothing is promised.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
right.
you can be here today, gone tomorrow. I cannot tell you how many times I've heard stories about people showing up to their office and there's a padlock on the door. They didn't even so much as get an email. Their stuff is still sitting in their desk, but they can't get in because the place filed bankruptcy and shut down. And I mean, that's an extreme story, but it happens.
Yeah.
And, or the typical story, oh, I've been at this company X number of years and blah, blah, blah. Didn't see that one coming. And one of the things that I always used to tell my former coworkers when I was, when I used to live in Atlanta, I adopted this kind of like I'm trying to think, lion in the wild kind of, or maybe a wolf in the wild kind of mentality, because I was a contractor.
Mm.
And, you had no rights,
Yeah.
in the line of work that we both come from. The instructional design world is, man, it's dog eat dog. I mean, there's very few permanent positions. And even if there are, they're not all going to be the 30-year career.
No.
I don't even know, does anybody even have a 30-year career anymore? So when you understand that you are, disposable, expendable at all costs, and sometimes if it takes that you end up on a project and somebody decides they don't like you, and then you're gone. And I remember telling someone, it's like, why are you so comfortable? I'm glad you love working here and you've been here for 30 years and this and this, but dude, you need to watch your back, because I don't know what you're seeing from your viewpoint, but as someone who has a holistic view, I'm warning all of y'all. All of y'all are going to be out of a job in the next 2 months. I have had that happen several times where I tried to warn colleagues and they're like, oh, no, it's going to be okay. I'm like, but if you read the newspapers and you pay attention, you understand how businesses work. This department is redundant. And if you don't understand your place in the world in an organization, you will become so vulnerable.
That's right.
And next thing you know, you're out. So why not why would you put all of your eggs in one basket and it's somebody else's basket? When you can put your eggs, at least some of your eggs, in your own basket. And if there's one thing that I know for sure, I know I can count on myself.
Yeah.
I know that when I get up in the morning, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to get it.
That's right.
So I just want to, what's your perspective about that? Because that's kind of turns that notion on its head. Like, you have to be safe and better not quit your job because, that's my answer to that is, oh, really? You're going to rely on somebody in some office somewhere that you don't even know where they are or who they are. They're going to look at it and decide that your job is not needed anymore.
I think it's so funny that we were talking about this, because even in the past, probably 2 months, I've spoken with 3 entrepreneurs who are working their day job and starting their dream business outside of those hours. And, I never thought to do that. I mean, because when I had a job, I wasn't thinking about being a business owner.
Yeah.
But, I think to get it off the ground so that you have a cushion, because I think like it would be easy for me to say, oh yeah, just dump all your money into doing this thing. But when the bills are coming in, when you've got other it's really hard to kind of visualize that. And I think that in my case, I know there were just I knew there were going to be costs because I have been scaling businesses for other people for a while now. So I knew to expect those costs, but it's really difficult if you don't have some sort of plan financially to be able to just take on some of these ad hoc expenses that come up. I had to pay the state of Georgia some money. I needed different systems in order to operate I didn't want to have a Gmail address. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like for my business. And so that costs money. I needed, a marketing system. I needed a domain. I needed a website. And again, not everybody chooses to do all of that stuff first. And I'm not saying you have to do those things, but just understand that regardless of how you grow your business, there are going to be things that you have to pay for up front, because if there's one entity that wants money from a business owner, it is our government. And they're going to have their hand out in one way, shape, or form or fashion.
Out, up, over, in, upside down. Their hands are everywhere.
So there is a world where people who understand that and have a current position take advantage of, well, I've got money coming in. I can do my job during the day or whenever they've got it worked out, but I can certainly use this extra time I have outside of that work to get my business off the ground. I know a lady who is a baker who has started her bakery that way. And she is probably now she has a plan. She's probably about 2 months from being able to leave her day job.
That is fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, it's scary. No matter how you decide to build that business, whether you're working somewhere else, look, minimum Uber. Be an Uber driver for a little while. I think sometimes people kind of go into work with a sense of pride. Like, I'm a finance manager, therefore I need to have finance work. Even if I want to start my own business, I can't do any kind of other job to get me.
Yeah, it's that identity thing again too, because that so much of our identity is tied to the work that we do. And one little side note, I noticed how American that is.
Very American.
Very American, because, living here in Europe now, going on, a number of years. It's interesting, it's kind of like when you show up to a cocktail party or dinner party or whatever, in the United States, it's not going to be too long before someone's asking you,
for sure.
So what do you do? What do you do? The question. Oh, so what do you do?
And you are judged.
I do that, because everybody's just glowing and they can't wait to tell you about what they did, because, that's like, ooh, I'm big something. Here I don't think anybody's ever asked me that. Never. They'll ask me, well, where are you from? Probably because obviously they're like, what the hell accent is that? It's not Dutch. So then of course there's questions that then they start asking me about politics and like,
sure.
I don't want to talk about, like, can I ask you, like, what's your name? Like, I don't want to talk about that. But the whole what do you do has never, ever, ever, not once ever come up. I will get asked, what kind of things am I into? Hobbies, where do I live? Where have I traveled? Those kinds of things. But that's that identity. But I want to touch on something. I know we only have a few more minutes, but there's something that I want to ask you, because the requirement, you have to carve out time if you're gonna pave a runway for yourself, to be able to kind of overlap, stay in your job so that you have that security until you can, launch and be really on your own. And I think that there's absolutely that's a wonderful thing. I think the best way to do it. I've done that before, but I hear a lot of people say that they want to do that, and they agree that it's a good idea, and they commit to doing it,
and then
they do nothing. They don't do it. And I have a sense that it's a little bit of fear. There's some blocks there. The imposter syndrome situation is super, super strong. And then it manifests in, oh, I don't really have time. I can't carve out. I'm so tired. And I want to ask you, Shelia, what would you advise to someone who's playing that little game, that dance, I'm going to go ahead and just be blunt and call it what it is. It's like, It's
Mhm.
the avoidance dance. It's the resistance dance. There's so many things that are behind that
Mhm.
lack of doing. I mean, it just boils down to set your alarm to get up an hour earlier each morning. Decide that on Saturday, when you get home after taking the kids to baseball or ballet or whatever, that you're
Mhm.
gonna put them for snack and nap or whatever, and you're gonna tell the family, "Hey, between 1 and 5,
Right.
I'm in my office and I'm doing my thing. Please do not disturb me."
That's right.
But there's always, "Oh, my kids need me. Oh, my husband won't understand. I gotta do that. I gotta clean the house." But it's like, but you make time for all these other things. What kind of like in your face kind of thing can you say to that
You
person?
know I've got it too.
I know you got it. That's why I asked you.
Okay. There's two pieces to this. One, entrepreneurship is not for everyone. So I think sometimes you have to separate, and there's a term for those people, right? Wantrepreneurs.
Want to
Are are they a wantrepreneur?
Yeah, yeah.
Because there are people out in the world, and I encounter them from time to time, who love talking about this thing that they're gonna do and that they want to
Mhm.
start doing, and they
Right,
never will. They won't. They're a wantrepreneur. They love the idea of it. It's sort of like their escape from the mundanity of their life or the what, like the routine, but
right,
they do not possess the drive and the self-motivation to do it.
right.
And so there's that's one thing. And
Mhm.
so sometimes figuring out, like, one of the first questions I ask someone is, "Why haven't you done it yet? Why haven't you done this yet?" "Oh, I think
Right,
this is wow, that's a phenomenal idea. What's prevented you from taking actions to starting this business?"
right. It's always the time. That's the one I
Yeah,
hear all
and
the time.
so
"I don't have time."
but then the second piece is, and I spend a lot of time talking with other people about this, we cannot have it all. I'm
Excellent
gonna lean
post,
in.
by the way.
We cannot.
Excellent post, by the way.
Thank
That
you.
was from what, 2 days ago, right?
Yeah, but I shared it because I talk with people a lot about this. You cannot have it all. You cannot have a full-time job and be a business owner. You cannot successfully run 3 and build 3 businesses. You cannot. You are full of grand ideas, but you have to pick the 1 or 2 that you can successfully
Mhm.
execute and
Yeah,
commit to it for the next 2 to 3 years and do the boring work behind it and do all the stuff that nobody wants to do because it's your idea. And if
right,
you can't commit to it, why in the hell should anyone work for you and commit to it? And so
right.
to me, that's the other conversation. If they're a
Mhm.
entrepreneur, don't waste your breath. They're never going to
Right.
do it. Like, don't even worry about it. It's just like, oh, okay, yeah, okay. It's a dream you have, right? But for the other people, sometimes we really I was this person. That's why I'm so passionate and emphatic about this, Rhonda, is I was that person who wanted like I always had 10 things going on between all the birthday parties and all the kids events and the dinners and I have to make a big fancy meal every night and it has to do and then I have my career and oh somewhere in there I have a marriage. I don't even know where he is right now. And
I
then I
have
got this
no
other
idea what you're talking about.
and all I had to do was finally accept that I can only do a few of these
Right,
super good. And I have to decide what are the ones that are going to get me what I want the fastest. I want a relationship with my kids. Okay, easy, done. I need a healthy marriage and I want a healthy marriage. Okay.
right,
And so that leaves room for, okay, and I need an income source. I'm
right.
gonna start a business, and for me, that also meant having my spouse's support. I needed that because I we have children and they need parents, and so I
Yeah,
would love to just stay in this little space all day and business away because I love businessing, but, like, I need, a proximal support system in order
right.
to do that, and guess what? Once I set aside all that, like, how important is it that we go to every birthday party?
Yeah,
Sheila decided that was important at some point. It's not actually important. That's why there's an RSVP system so that you can say no. Like,
and say no. That's there's a lot of power in the word no, isn't there?
there is. And so to me, Rhonda, and I know you're good at having that conversation anyway, but that is the advice, is to like, and then to call them out, right? And say, you know what? I love our conversations and I'm here to help you grow, but it doesn't sound like this is something that you have the willingness and the availability or capability to
Right.
put into this. And
Yeah.
so I don't know that it makes sense for us to keep talking about it at this point,
Yeah.
because I'm here to hold
almost,
you accountable to doing something. And if you can't get the match lit,
yeah.
then we might as well put the bag of charcoal up, because we're not grilling anything.
We're not having a cookout today. I know. Sheila, that is so important and so powerful. And I know we're about out of time, but I just wanted to just recap. So you've shared some wonderful things today. Thank you so much. So it's support systems, benchmarking, really paying attention and emulating the success principles of other business owners around you. Doing hard things.
Yes.
Getting up in the morning and carving out 6 hours a week. That's really not a lot.
No, making it a
Spread that out
priority.
over 7 days. That's less than an hour over a 7-day period. Okay, we'll
Right.
take Sunday off. Okay, so that's an hour a day, 6 days a week. Financial runway. And I think the biggest piece is, you can't have it all, despite how many empowering things that we were taught as little girls growing up
Yep.
in the 70s and the 80s. No, we
That's
can't bring home the bacon fried up in a pan and blah, 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 the Angelique commercial. You know that. I mean, I'm aging myself big time here, but you know what I'm saying? It's like the Barbie dolls that like, oh, this week she's an astronaut. Next week Barbie's a flight attendant. Oh, Barbie's had like 100 careers,
Yeah.
And I'm not saying don't do it. I'm not saying don't go full steam ahead, but I'm just saying give yourself permission to say no. And I
That's
like that you put that flat out there, because I recognize that a lot of people struggle with that. They feel like they're failing themselves or somebody if they don't just go all in. So on that note, I just want to thank you so much for your time. Do you have any parting sage words for us, and let us know where we can find you so we can support
yeah.
this fabulous new business?
Yeah. So my sage parting word: trust yourself. Just trust yourself and listen to yourself. And then I am on culturepro.co is my website. You can find me on LinkedIn, dishing information and perspective about all sorts of things around people and culture. That's really and then just being a person in the workforce. I talk a lot about people and just people at work. And so my LinkedIn, of course, is just under my name, but it's, I'm /Shelia. And I hope I hear from you guys. Let's stay in touch. Rhonda, you're a gem. And thank you so much for letting me come on your podcast. Thank
Well,
you.
I
This
have
has been
really
wonderful.
thoroughly enjoyed having you, and thank you so much for sharing all of your insight and your lovely stories. And I just wish you the most success with your new business. I'm super excited about it. I can't wait to see where you're going with this, and I will be continuing to glom on your LinkedIn posts every single day.
Like it. Like and comment.
Yes, I will. I will be. I need to comment more. So thank you everyone for this episode of The Pivoting Wolf, and go and check out Sheila's information and connect with her. And until next time, see you.
Bye, guys.